So now that we understand that these are, the colour molecules are already formed, there's no processing that happens with these colours. Have you ever heard of anyone making a colour bomb before? Have you ever heard that term? Yeah, it's popular with the Olaplex, if anyone's on the Olaplex page, with the number 3 and the number 5. So basically what you can do is, for your clients, you can inject a little bit of your direct dye into your client's treatment or conditioner, so that when they go home, if they've got a vivid, it would be best with just like one plain colour. You can't do this for rainbow hair, but if someone's just got like a purple or a pink, you can actually do that in their bottle of conditioner. That way, every time they're applying their conditioner, they're adding a bit of colour pigment to it as well, because they don't process, they don't oxidize. It's just like, the best way I can describe is like a coloured conditioner, like a dye, like a food dye, a fabric dye. That's how they work. They stain the hair. Same way they stain your skin. I'm going to sacrifice my hand here. With a towel. Yeah, so that's it. Once it's on, and it's done its work, and it's stained the hair. So it's really good to do that, and that's just an extra service that you can offer to your client. I would grab their treatment and conditioner, empty it out into a bowl, and just add a little dab, mix it up, and then put it back in. And it's just another service that you can add, and it helps them as well, because these colours do fade faster. It's something that they can do just to help. So staining, they stain. From my experience with regarding brands of colour, the more that it stains my skin, the more strong the colour pigment is, and I know that the more likely that is to hold onto the hair and last longer. So that's a nice way that I like to check, is how much does it stain my skin. Yeah, then I know it's going to stain the hair, and I know that that colour pigment is really strong, really stainy. So yes, that's colour bombs. Products, I think I did just explain pigmented to you, strength. So it's good to be familiar with your colour brand, whatever it is. It's just good to be familiar with it. So use it. I would suggest doing a few models. That's the best way that I learnt. In the beginning, I started off doing like a couple of models a week, just for free in the beginning when I didn't know what I was doing, just to learn. And not only did that help me learn my skills, but it also helped me like familiarise myself with products. So like I said, I'm not too brand specific. I'm always open to trying new things, but I'll find my favourites once I've tried. I do prefer, though, I will say, most of my direct dyes that I use are like a cream conditioner base. Have you ever used ones that are like that, like a cream conditioner kind of? Yeah, those are my favourite. I've had the most success working with those. Occasionally I've used some that are like a gel based. Have you ever seen a gel? It's like translucent, opposed to a conditioning cream, which is more like solid, you can't see through it. They do, I think they do work better. They are stronger, they seem to stain the hair more and last longer. But I just prefer the conditioner ones, because I have found from my own personal experience that the gels can be a bit hit and miss for me. So my preference is the conditioner based. I can show you what I mean though, the difference. I might just come down and show you. So these are all like conditioner based. You can't see through them. They're not really translucent. They're like a coloured conditioner. Whereas this Manic Panic Pro that I have, I put it on my hand. My hands are going to be rainbow by today. Yeah, it's a different consistency, and it is more like a cellophane, like a translucent. There are all sorts of different brands of direct dyes out these days. There are some that are even hybrids. I don't use them. I don't know a whole lot about them because I haven't used them, but what I'm talking about today is just your normal conditioner direct dyes. What I meant by hybrid, I should explain, is they are able to be intermixed with peroxide as well. So I can't remember the brand, maybe Trillion Tones? Doesn't matter, but it's just, there are a lot of, what the point that I am trying to make, I'll get back on track, is that it's good to familiarise yourself with your products so you know what you're using. Sorry about the tangent. Get a bit enthusiastic about it. Warning, don't trust the manufacturer. This is why it's so good to have practical experience and know what you're using, because I've been fooled before where I've needed a pink and I've had to do a client that next day, and the pink that I usually use was not available, which is the Joico hot pink I like to use. That's my favourite. And it was actually Joico. It wasn't called hot pink, but it was called pink. And I thought, that'll be the same. It wasn't. It was a bit different. And it's not necessarily always going to be this colour that you see. Sometimes you'll get it because you think it's this colour, but then when you open it up, it's actually not. So very important, whatever you use, to just familiarise yourself with it and don't always trust them. That's what I love about Manic Panic, is because you can see, it's transparent. It is legitimately transparent. I know that that's what I'm going to get. So I do prefer Manic Panic jars for that reason. There's no lying. There's not lying, but just a bit of deception. When it comes time for processing these colours, longer is better. Even though they don't actually technically process as such, there's no chemical change that's happening, there's no oxidising, it's just a stain. It's like, imagine if I spilt red wine on a white shirt and I went and washed it off immediately, versus if I spilt red wine on my shirt and I went and washed it off after 1 hour. The stain would be harder to remove. So think of it that way. So if you can leave it on for 30 minutes, that is better. Most of them recommend 20. 20 minutes seems to be enough. If you do have a lot of time, it is a bit tricky in the salon when you're working with a client, but if you do have a lot of time, 1 hour, leave it on there until it's nearly dry, that is better, but it's not always practical. So 20 minutes, 30 minutes if you can. Just remember your red wine theory stain. The longer it's on there, the harder the stain is going to be to remove. We can only add reflect. So we can't add base, because think of these like cellophane. Whatever you put underneath the cellophane, you're going to be able to see. They're just like a sheer. So if you want to do a balayage and you want to add depth to this, you're going to have to do that first with an oxidising colour. So with your permanent or semi-permanent oxidising tint. So put your balayage in first if you want to make it dark. Then go over the top of that after. So it's a two-step service, and you're just going to have to explain that to the clients as well. They need to understand that it is going to take you more time and you are going to have to charge more for it because it's two separate colour services. So, usually they'll understand that, and it's just best to do it that way because you're doing it properly. And another reason you want to do it in two separate steps is because you'll find that oxidising tint and direct dyes don't mix together. So if I was trying to do this in one go instead of two, I would put my tint on, my oxidising tint, say a level 5, then try and put this on, and at some point you're going to have to try and blend, right? You've got one that's got peroxide in it that's trying to work on the inside of the hair. No, don't draw, we've drawn enough. So one's trying to work inside, one's trying to work outside, and they just don't like each other. In fact, a lot of the time for colour removal, I don't know if you've ever heard of the clear and 20 volt technique to remove vivids. So what happens, not always, it's not the rule. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's a bit hit and miss, but that's the idea, is that the peroxide kind of just eats these. So you really don't want to mix them unless it is one of those hybrid ones and it's designed for that. Generally, don't mix them. Do it in two separate steps, because then what will happen is you'll have a nice level 5, a direct dye, and this bit here where you're going to try and blend will just go patchy and just not grab. So you really can't rush it, unfortunately. If you're going to rush it, you will sacrifice your results a little bit. So I don't just open with my clients, I just explain that to them, and they understand why it is more expensive, and they understand why it takes more time, but they appreciate me going that extra step, taking the time and getting their hair right.
Would it run into the other colour as well? Do you know your base colour, would that run into the vivid?
I'm repeating the question. Would the base colour, if I was to do a level 5, would that run into these colours as well when you're rinsing them out? It probably would. I don't do it a lot, so that's a good question. But I would say if you are washing off peroxide and it's rinsing down into here, there probably would be a risk of that happening. That is a really good one. Yeah. So best not do it. Best just do it separately. Yeah. That's a really good one. Any other questions while we're at it?
I think I've got one.
Yes, please. Please help me because I'm just talking.
Do you know that when you were talking about the gel-based one and the conditioner, like, do the colours look different? Do you know the difference when you do them? Do they actually, like, is one more vivid than the other? When you do them more?
I haven't found a difference, no. So is one...
It's just the longevity of it.
Yeah. So
One stays longer than the other.
the gel colours versus the conditioner base, is there much of a difference in the colour? I haven't seen much of a difference, to be honest. When I put it on the hair, they look the same, they just feel different. The gel feels slimy, really slimy. I think it is. I think it's what you're used to, and I'm used to working with the conditioners. That's just the consistency that I like. So for me, I prefer that. Yeah, and I find it easier because it's what I know. Yeah, I think it's each to their own. Yeah, and I just, from my experience, just prefer them, but I don't notice a difference in colour. Yes?
When you're doing the balayage and you say that you do the dark colour on the root and then you do the afterwards,
Yeah.
if you're doing a really dark root colour, that would run through and you've got really light ends, wouldn't that run through, or it can run through, can't it?
Yes, it can if you're not careful. My best advice for that is cold water. Like, cold water is your friend. Don't be afraid to, like, make your client uncomfortable at the cost of results, because what they're going to leave with is the results. You know, for that 1 minute or 2 minutes that they're uncomfortable, usually they will appreciate it if you take it. And when I'm giving them advice, I give them a hair care sheet and I tell them this is what you need to do. So if I'm not doing that in the salon and I'm telling them to do it, then they might just kind of question my motives. Yeah, and if you're really worried, like, you can take it to the next level where maybe if you've got an assistant and you've got really blonde on here in like a level 1 or level 2, actually get someone to hold that hair out of the way while you're rinsing. Like, I don't have an assistant, but I've quite often got my clients to help me when they're usually over the sink. I'll, like, can you just hold this? Like, I'm not afraid to get them involved. I'll do whatever it takes to get the results. I'll wash them with cold water. I'll bend them over forwards, backwards. I'll get them to hold their hair. Like, whatever I have to do to get those results. Or you could cover it in foil. You just limit, I don't know how to say, damage control. Yeah. It can happen, yeah. And with reds, I've found a lot of the time if you're doing like a reddy kind of colour, sometimes it will bleed. So yes, cold water, and try and just keep that hair out of the way so that there's just you're limiting your risk. Yeah, damage control. Conditioner to just protect it. Yes, that's a good one too. We're all learning. Another thing I did want to just mention on that with only adding Reflect is these colours, they do actually work from a level 7 up. So don't think that, like, it's too dark. Like, can I use, Emma, can I use your hair as an example? Could you come up? So this, I think a lot of the time some of us think that this natural colour here, because you're all like so light, she's like, well, you're basically a level 8. Yeah, we'd just assume that wouldn't really take, but it actually does. The vivids will just go over that a little bit, and so I wouldn't just worry about the blonde here in this scenario. I would still do my vivid up here as well, and by doing that, you're going to kind of tone it. You will see a little bit of colour, but if I do a blue on this blonde, her hair's still kind of naturally a little bit warm and it will just look a bit funny. So more often than not, even if the hair is dark, so long as it's like a level 6 up, I'll still put the dye over it. Thank you. It makes a big difference. Yeah. Exactly. It won't be as bright, but it will help the colour like transition. Yeah. I even did put it over this actually. This is the better example, and this was like a level 5, level 6, but can you see how it's still taken and it adds to helping you get that blend. So don't just disregard it and think, oh, but it's dark hair, it won't matter. Like, it does matter still. Look, you can see. Actually, there's a really good, see? So it's worthwhile doing. Yeah, don't just disregard. So some level 5s, but level 6 and up, you're still going to see something. And yes, just, I wish that I had a comparison to show you. I should have only done half because it would be blatantly obvious. I did have some swatches now that I remember. I remember that I forgot to bring them. But yes, you can see that makes a difference. Before we move on to the next page, does anyone have any more questions about that?